All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started with the January 24th, 2003 meeting of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. It's my first meeting as chair, so I'm sure that's why everyone is here to, to celebrate and support me in this new role. But we'll go ahead and start looking at the consent agenda. So we have the minutes from December 2022 Board of Waterworks Trustee meeting, the minutes from January 10th, 2023 Planning Committee meeting, the minutes from January 17th, 2023 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, financial statement, list of payments for December, the summary of CEO approved expenditures in excess of 20,000. The review and approve reserve funds investment policy, the review and approve depository, for Des Moines Waterworks funds, and the next meeting date of February 28th, 2023. Ted, are there any of those items that you want to highlight?
There are, Andrea, three of them, in fact. Item D is an item that's on the consent agenda every month. The approved expenditures, CEO approved expenditures in excess of 20,000, but usually there aren't any. This month, there are two. The first is legal fees for Allers and Cooney, who provided the financial review of our regional 28E agreement. And the second is Northway Well and Pump Company, and they provided a purchase service to remove the pump at the LP Moon ASR facility. We talked last month about the need for an emergency repair there at LP Moon, and the board did authorize that. So that's the first. You probably see a series of payments for services and replacement parts out there at LP Moon, and that's just the first of those. So that's item 1D. I would also call the board's attention to items 1E and 1F. The review and approve reserve fund investment policy and review and approve depositories for Des Moines Waterworks funds. These are items that are on the consent agenda, but only once a year. There's a requirement for annual approval of the investment policy, the reserve investment policy, and then the depositories for our reserve funds. The investment policy, there is a memo in the packet here, but the investment policy is pretty straightforward. It has to comply with Chapter 12B of the Iowa Code, which obviously it does. The primary objectives of our policy are, in order of importance, are safety, liquidity, and return, which is simply to say we want the funds to be safe and available, and that's more important than the return, but the return is also important. It lists some investment options. We can't invest in just anything. We have to invest in certain types of investments, and then there are some maturity requirements there. They can't be, our funds cannot be placed in vehicles that have too long of a maturity. And then the depositories are listed on the last page of the first section here. There are several. Our primary depository is Bankers Trust, but there are others that are listed there. One requirement that we have is that we like all of our depositories to have a branch in the downtown area, so they're easily accessible to us if we need to do business there. So those are additional items on the consent agenda today that I wanted to make sure the board was aware.
On the consent agenda as presented.
Second. All right. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or additional discussion? If not, I'll go ahead and ask us to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next on the agenda is our public comment period. I know we do have Rick Islander here with us. If you, for recording purposes, where do you need him, or
I have the podium mic,
okay,
but you won't be on camera. So
great. So yeah,
it'll be easier that way you can hear me.
you could state your name and your organization affiliation, anything else?
Nope, that's-
Yes, ma'am. Rick Eilander, and I'm president of ASME Council 61 that represents your employees here at Waterworks. And I'm here today to talk to you about concerns, concerns about health and safety. And that's a big concern. As you all know, and have probably, can you hear me? Okay. All right. That we filed an OSHA complaint. Right. I won't go deeply into that because I believe it's still under investigation. I do have concerns after hearing of that problem way after the fact at the council level, that it was just being investigated months after the fact that it happened. Health and safety is a big issue to, as you can tell, all the union people here tonight and employees. That's a big concern. They're all worried. They're worried about their health and safety, their coworkers' health and safety, and how are we going to address that in the future? I want to assure the board that the complaint wasn't filed in malice. We're not looking for fines. We're looking for change. We're looking for training. We're looking for long-term training, especially of new employees. We're looking for retraining of employees that are still here on new programs to prevent these from happening again. I've heard stories since the OSHA complaint, which happened in October, the incident that we've hit gas lines more than once. Shouldn't happen. Those things should be marked and they should not be hit. Now, whether that's a management problem, a marking problem, or an employee problem, because our people have to be safe too. When you're out there doing your job, we have to be safe, right? And if they're not, we stand behind making it happen that they are, right? So that's what I really wanted to talk about, was that OSHA complaint and let you know what we wanted out of it and why it was filed, right? We want to get with Ted, we want to get with Doug, and we want to talk about training programs. How are new people trained? It's my understanding the incident that happened in October had a new crew leader, may have been his first time on the job or day on the job. And the individual in the hole that, thank God, didn't pass away was also brand new. Should never have happened. And that goes not on our people. It goes all the way to the top. And it all comes down to training and having somebody with authority on the work site to say, stop what you're doing. Don't drill into that. Don't do that. Don't dig. Because if you're brand new and you're just thrown into a situation and your supervisor's like, yeah, we do this all the time, go ahead and do that. Not a good situation. And that's kind of what happened in that situation. I wasn't there. The investigation's still going on. So, but rest assured, I want the money to stay with Waterworks. That's why I say no fines. And even if one came out, I'd be against it. And I'll tell them that because I want you to use that money for training, right? I want people to be safe. And I believe everybody in this room, the employees want the same. They want to go to work and feel like it's a safe program and that their coworkers have their back, and including supervisors that should be on site, especially if it's a major incident. Just my opinion, what happened in October shouldn't have even been our people in the hole doing it, right? It had to do with some electrical issues. Should have been the utility company doing something like that, not us. I also want to talk about morale. I took over a year and a half ago for Danny Holman. For the last year and a half, and actually since 2017, morale's went downhill with employees, particularly here when our contract came up last time and certain items had to been taken out, right? Some of it by law. We developed a plan to continue talks I believe I did finally get that signed, which I thought was signed and sent over quite a few months ago. To keep a program going where the union and management can still talk about issues. I have yet to see one of those happen. And if I'm mistaken, Doug or Ted, please let me know. But we need to get that up and running, right? Because some of this could be done with that labor management program that we came up with. And Bill Stowe actually started that program. God rest his soul. I think it was 2 weeks before he passed. He was here talking to us about it, trying to get it going. So I think that's important to get back up and running, so we can avoid these problems. And it would also raise the morale of the employees knowing they had a say so. I've heard more than once since our last contract negotiations that there's not a procedure for this anymore. And that's it. What does that mean? Does that mean the union doesn't have a say? Does that mean the employees don't have a say? Because the program we came up with isn't only union people in the program, I believe. I believe management gets to pick some of their people. We get to pick some of our people. And then I believe non-members even have a chance to be in there at some point too. So I think it's a good program and we need to get it up and running, and it hasn't been done. Now, don't get me wrong. Ted and I do have a good relationship. Doug and I have a good relationship. I want to keep that relationship good. That's why I'm here, right? I could be up here beating my fist on here saying somebody almost died, passed away. Don't want to do that. I don't want to come back in 3 weeks and do that, right? We should cooperate. We should get things done and do it the right way. That's why I'm here. I've had a couple other complaints that came to me, although not in our bargaining agreement anymore, but posting the job titles. Don't know if they're true or not, but I'm going to bring it up. Is when job titles are posted, at least on 2 occasions, I've heard that the job title was then changed to fit the person that they wanted in the position. Not the way it used to be. The contract used to spell it out. Person with the most experience, if they were equal, the person with the most experience and longevity got the job. Not that way anymore. Those are the issues we'd like to talk about during those meetings, is how do we move forward on those issues? And without being able to talk about it, we run into problems. And the problems are then we file OSHA complaints and we do other things when we're told, sorry, there's no procedure for that. We're not going to talk to you. So I find that standoffish, I guess, even though I think we still have a great relationship. But I am here to keep that relationship, and that's why I'm here today. Any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day and your schedule to come down and be here with us and to share that information. Your priorities and your suggestions. I think I can speak for the entire board when we say that providing a safe work environment for our employees is a top priority for us, and working together to accomplish that and having that dialogue is how we're going to get there. So I appreciate your time today and sharing those potential solutions. Does anybody else?
I do. Mr. Islander, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
It's significant that you're here today. We haven't had a person in your position come to our meeting for a very long time. And so it's meaningful, and it speaks to the importance of what's ahead of us, that you're here. And I've got an ask of you. And I have ongoing conversations with Bill and his team here. And I've discussed this with Bill previously, but my ask is that we don't leave this meeting today with, well, Rick Islander came and nothing happened. So I think you alluded to that in 3 weeks and you feel like you have to come back.
Yep.
What I'm asking for is, I want us to set up those meetings here at Moines Water Works that you're asking for, and I want us to work through this. As a believer in unions, and I've told you this, and I've told Bill this as well, we're better because we have union representation here at Moines Water Works. And we're better if we work together and we make the most of that relationship. Your team comes to the table with expertise about the things that are going on in the state, frankly, things that are going on nationally, that we can put to work here, best practices that we can work here, and we can use that. And so my request is that we do exactly the things that you're talking about, and have these meetings with a definite goal at the end. You started your talk today talking about the need for training. I agree. Let's look at our training programs and let's look at these things. I mean, we did have an incident, possibly a couple of incidents here that were beyond troubling. And we need to get to the bottom of those, but this isn't about. It's not about casting blame, and blame has to be, that's fine, but that's not the goal of what you and I are talking about, I think, if I'm putting words in your mouth. What we're really talking about is, how do we make this better? How do we make this place safer? How do we make these employees feel like they work in the safest environment possible?
Correct.
And if they don't feel that today,
Mhm.
whether it's real or imagined, it's a problem. Problem is, it's more real than imagined, but I mean,
Yep.
we've got to fix that. So my ask of you is, whoever on your team you can lend to us that support Bill and his team on their side of the table, as we have the discussion, we need that. And if you can do that,
That'll be me.
and that's great. And I'm pleased to hear that.
Yep.
Because I take you at your word. You're here as a team member, frankly, as our team member, as part of our team. And I want that to happen. So thank you for coming. And, I agree with Andrew. I think you have support in this board and moving forward. And we want the best relationship. We have, that's one, and I've said it before, and Bill will back me up in this. I've said at this table before, but one of the things I'm most proud of is that relationship we have with our employees. So we've got some problems. Let's fix it. Thank you for coming.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? Ted?
I want to thank all of the employees for coming here. It speaks volumes when you're sitting there and you're telling us it's important. So, but part of that solution, I don't want it to just be management. I mean, what I hear Graham saying is we need to know how the training programs need to be improved. We need to know what you think they need. I mean, you're the closest to it. It's great that you're there as their leader, but these are the individuals that I think can give us the very best ideas for that training. We can't just build out a training program without knowing what is going to need. So thank you for representing them, but this is what really speaks to me to see all of these people here. So thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I can't remember your last name and I can't see it from here. But that's why the labor management team, it's not what we called it. What we call it?
Council is what
Yeah, the employee council is what we called it. It's so important because the employees will be sitting on that council, right? Not me. I may be there once or twice but once it gets up and going, it should be the employees running that labor management committee, Bill and the employees. So.
Rick, I just want to echo what Sue said. Appreciate you being here. I appreciate the relationship we've had for a long time and the way we can talk problems over, but I do want to thank the people who came and kind of elevated this today. It's an important thing, and Andrea said it best. The health and safety of our employees is of paramount importance to us. And we want them to feel that too. So we've fallen a little short there. We have work to do, but we're committed to working together to make it better. And I'll talk to Doug soon about employee council and where that's at. Fits and starts there. I don't know where it is right now, but we'll get it.
Yeah. All right. That's all I'm asking. The chance to talk and fix things. That's what we want to do. So.
Bill, is there anything you need to add from our local standpoint?
So we got challenges that have those and we're gonna deal with them. So it's a direction we want to go.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for being
Okay.
here again. I appreciate your time and all of your time as well. And I think just reiterating that again, Graham said it, I mentioned it. What I do appreciate, and Bill and I have met before too, the ability to come with solutions and working together. I really look forward to seeing how things progress in the next few months and checking in with all of you again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is there anybody else interested in our public comment period? If please take the opportunity if there's anybody else that would like to speak. If not,
Thank you to everybody.
yeah, thank you. Thank you all. We also hold this public comment period as a time to check in on regional governance. So I'll turn it over to you, Ted.
Andrea, I guess I can offer that we have been meeting, Amy Kaler and Rick Malm and I have been meeting with representatives from Urbandale and West Des Moines Water on about a weekly basis. And then I think from an agreement perspective, we're about there. We're about where we're going to get. There's still a couple of areas within the agreement that we haven't hammered out, and we may issue the next version of the agreement with some gray area there related to territory transfer and wholesale customers who don't join, but we made good progress. And the rest of the agreement is just about there. So I'm optimistic that in the not so distant future, we'll have a version that we can share with the rest of the participants and start getting their feedback, which I think will be very valuable.
Valuable, and I think that they're also probably eagerly awaiting that.
I think that you're right. I think they are.
Any other questions for Ted on that topic? Okay, moving into our action items. Item A, let me get it pulled up over here, is the approved proposed board policy manual revisions, contracting and consultant procedures. I just want to start off by thanking staff and everybody for entertaining my request that this topic has been to both the planning committee as well as the finance committee. And now we're here in front of the board again to actually approve it. And special thank you to Lindsay for her work in bringing all of these suggestions and information to us. It's a response to this board's request and encouragement to really look at our procedures, that how we can streamline these to be more efficient and more economical when we address these items. So thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ted for more information.
Andrea, I think you did a great job summarizing of what brought us to the point of bringing these proposed changes, requests from the board, some evaluation of our existing processes. And what we have here today is actually recommendations to update the board policy manual to do a few different things. One thing is we want to recognize the difference between a public improvement by definition as something new, a new water tower in Maine where there isn't one, a new facility on the one hand, and maintenance, repair, or replacement of existing facilities on the other hand. And those maintenance, repair, and replacement projects can follow a little more streamlined path just to save us time and to get the work on the street more quickly. And so we are recommending in these improvements that we do that for what we refer to as non-public improvements, that we don't follow the more rigorous public improvement path because it's not a requirement, and frankly, it probably isn't necessary. Also, there's a recommendation in here, or there's a new section in here that would allow for qualification-based selection, so that we would issue a request for qualifications and we would select our consultants based on their knowledge, skills, and experience instead of just on the cost. The revisions would allow for a phased approach to consultant selection where we could select a consultant for the first phase of a project and then presuming their performance is good, we can negotiate for them to further phases. And then also what we've called master service agreements, where we would have a number of contractors or consultants who we know are skilled at certain types of work, and we would have pre-existing arrangements with them, and we could just go to them, hire them for smaller projects. And of course, bring them to the board for approval if they're above CEO's spending authority. But a number of enhancements to the board policy intended to streamline the processes, move us through the contracting process more efficiently, and get the work done in what I think we all would consider a very challenging bidding environment today, all around us. So in your packet, there is a section that just is the changes. It's just the sections that have changed, but there's also an entire copy of the board policy manual with tracked changes, so you can see exactly what has changed and where it fits into the full policy. If you have an interest in knowing exactly what's going in and out, but we would recommend that the board approve these changes to the board policy manual for implementation immediately.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the proposed revisions to the board policy manual with an implementation date of today, January 24th, 2023.
So
Second,
All in favor?
wait, what can we discuss?
You're right, you're right.
Lindsay, how long have you been here? Okay, I think this is an excellent example of an employee coming to Des Moines Waterworks and having some great ideas from your previous institution. You've also challenged us on the spending authority of our CEO. And so that's the next thing that I know that we're going to be looking at, but I think it's important that, here we're calling out some changes to a procedure that's been here forever with someone who hasn't been here 6 months, but is bringing great value and efficiency. So kudos to you and thank you. Thanks for not being shy.
And this is Diane. I also appreciate the changes, but I'd like to assure everyone in looking at this that we will continue to have oversight of this process. It doesn't change any of that. It does streamline some things, but we will continue to have the information, so we'll be able to review this. So thank you for doing that, and hopefully it will make it easier and faster to do some of these things.
Now you can call for a
All right. So all in favor to approve the proposed revisions to the board policy manual with the implementation date of today.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving into item,
Diane, can we
oh, sorry.
can we get a vote from you, please?
Whoops, aye.
Moving on to item B, request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for ERP software and implementation services.
Andrea, we have been using PeopleSoft Financials as our financial platform since 1999. The last time it was upgraded was 2005. We have employed an independent consultant to support that platform for us for a number of years, but ultimately now PeopleSoft, the version that we have, has reached its useful life. So last year, finance and IT worked with a financial consultant to help us identify our needs and options that we might have. Sent a proposal or a request to proposals to 13 different vendors of financial services platforms. We got 5 proposals, demonstrations we got 7 proposals. We had demonstrations from 5 of those vendors. The team chose 2 for more detailed follow-up presentations, and team scored those 2 products based on technical aspects of their proposal, integration considerations, their implementation approach, and the cost. And based on that scoring, the team is recommending that the board authorize us to enter a professional services agreement with Oracle NetSuite for government. The Oracle NetSuite platform has 30,000 implementations across the country. The Oracle NetSuite for government is kind of an overlay on that very stable platform. The proposal includes a fixed fee of $242,000 plus estimated expenses of $36,000. So we're asking for approval here today for is the professional services agreement in a total amount of $278,000. Important to note that this is a cloud-based platform. There will be a subscription required on an ongoing basis. The proposal includes a 5-year subscription, which averages out to $78,000 per year that we will pay for ongoing support of that cloud-based platform. But today, we're asking for the board's approval to enter a professional services agreement, $278,000.
So the motion is to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional services contract with Oracle in the amount of $278,000 for implementation costs of Oracle NetSuite for government, contingent upon negotiation of the final terms and conditions acceptable to staff and subsequent review by legal counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Any conversation on this?
Do we know if 30,000 installation, I'm assuming they're fairly significant market share in this space.
Amy,
Yes, Oracle is a big player in the Europe space. They're a big name. I'm trying to.
There are no other questions or comments. We'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to C. Action item C is to approve the cooperative agreement between Des Moines Waterworks and the Iowa Department of Transportation for relocation of water main in the Interstate 35 Polk and Story County widening project from north of Northeast 36th Street in Ankeny to north of 315th Streets.
Andrea, this is a big project for the DOT that crosses our facilities in just a couple of locations. On Northeast 126th Avenue and Northeast 142nd Avenue. We're going to have to alter those facilities in those two locations to facilitate the DOT's work in those two areas. We're going to incorporate this work into the DOT's contract. The estimate is $662,000. We'll reimburse them the actual cost once the project is done. Anticipate this work will happen 2024 and 2025. But they're getting the contracts put together and ready to go. So we ask for authorization to execute the cooperative agreement.
So the motion is to approve and authorize the CEO and general manager to execute the Iowa Department of Transportation cooperative agreement for relocation of water main in the Interstate 35 Polk Story County widening project from north of Northeast 36th Street in Ankeny to north of 315th Street, and to authorize staff to reimburse the Iowa Department of Transportation for the actual cost of the water main replacement in the I-35 project.
So
Second.
Any additional comments or questions? If not, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to, oh,
Did you hear me? Aye.
I'm nailing it today. Item D is to request authorization to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations for East Court Avenue reconstruction from Des Moines River to East 7th Street.
Andrew, this is a big project for the city of Des Moines, complete reconstruction of Court Avenue for 7 or 8 blocks immediately east of the river. We have a lot of existing facilities in that corridor, essentially the whole length of that corridor. Water mains that were installed in either 1890 or 1891. Some of those water mains are 4-inch diameter, some are 10. That's kind of a hodgepodge of things that were installed. But great opportunity for us to get those facilities replaced as part of the City of Des Moines project. Based on unit prices bid for the estimated quantities, we will be reimbursing the City of Des Moines just over $1 million. And we're requesting permission, authorization from the board to reimburse the city once that work is done.
So the motion is to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations included in the East Court Avenue reconstruction from the Des Moines River to East 7th Street project.
So moved. I have a unrelated question, Ted. This Court Avenue makes me think of, I know there was a water main break on the western side of the river, I think around the holidays. Where are we on water main breaks this year? Where are we?
Not too bad. Is Jenny on the line?
Yeah, I am, Ted. We've had
Jenny-
about 20 so far in January. We ended up with just under 300 last year.
Okay, so this winter, we're looking about 1 a day. Would you call that an accurate?
Yeah, I would.
characterization? Okay, not bad, I would say,
All right.
compared to February of 2014, when we had 54 main breaks in a week.
Right.
I don't know, Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, it seems like it's been a lot simpler. I mean.
I just jinxed it by asking.
Never should ask. Yeah. There hasn't been a lot of frost. Would you agree with that?
Not as much. I mean, it seemed like lately maybe.
Yeah.
It's different spots, but otherwise, not too bad.
Well, let's hope it stays in that.
Agreed.
And if it doesn't, it's not my fault.
No, I think it is.
You know, Andrea, on this particular item that we're discussing too, there's been so much development in that area. I mean, there are hotels, there are wonderful new businesses. And I know it's the City of Des Moines project, but I just want to make sure there's lots of coordination with those businesses. I mean, you're talking about, I'm sure the usage in that area has gone up substantially since, you know, oh, in the last 10 years. So I don't know how we handle coordination when it's a City of Des Moines project, but we're doing the work. But boy, let's be careful that we don't hurt those customers, hurt all of those businesses.
I can speak from experience as a business owner. I said some waterworks tap on my door and say we're shutting your water off at 5 tonight. It's like, wait, what? We have a restaurant. So I don't know what the policies and procedures are, but definitely.
That happened recently?
No, this is probably 2019, maybe. So
That's recently.
yeah, I guess the grand script was 1895. But yeah, I think that's a valid point. I don't know exactly. I've now been more in a position to care, but I've seen it happen. And obviously, especially in hospitality, to be open, you have to have running water.
Yeah, there are interesting challenges there, and we do try to coordinate. Sometimes there'll be customers in the same cut. Some of them want the water off during the day because they operate at night, and some of them, hotels do not like the water to be off in the evening. They want it to be off during the day, and so we try to balance that, but
And I think some of that probably, if anything, it's just the notice.
yeah.
It's one
More
thing.
notice.
If we knew, no, a week in advance, hey, we have to close early that night, wouldn't have been an issue. And they were very helpful in trying to come up with a solution spot, but I think that lack of. And like I said, maybe this is in coordination with the city, they're just not on the spot, do what they need to do.
Well, I would think we would have some ability to
Staging
coordinate
and
that.
sequencing is part of the design. Design is done right, with some care and attention to that. Using construction, finer details that are executed. For the most part, yeah, it should be some scheduled pattern. It should be something motion to correct.
How long is the outage usually?
Could be as short as, you know, a couple, 3 hours. Could be as long as 8.
Yeah, I usually told people 4 hours. I thought that was kind of a good middle of the road, but it depends a lot on what you're doing.
Right.
You know, if we're just making a new connection, 2 or 3 hours is probably reasonable, but if we have to lay some pipe in there. We know that in advance typically, and can tell the business owner if it's gonna be an hour or 4 or 6.
So one other comment, you mentioned this is extremely old piping. Do we know how much of that old piping is still out there?
Absolutely. I can't tell you today, but I mean, we have records of installation
Sure,
years for every foot of pipe. And so we have charts, and graphs that show age of pipe.
Is there a lot? of
Yes,
older? Okay.
there is a lot. And the thing that I will tell you though, interestingly enough, I noticed in the comments here that it said that this had a history of breaking. But some of our really old pipe rarely breaks, especially in residential neighborhoods, it seems will have pipe from the 1900 that's never had a break. And so age is not necessarily the best indicator of condition. Pipe that was installed after the war in the 50s and 60s especially is some of our worst pipe, and it breaks all the time. But yes, we do have a lot of old pipe, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
Well, and the challenge, I mean, if we're successful in 2023 with regionalization, we'll have this money that comes into the waterworks. And that's gonna be a challenge for Ted and the staff, is to figure out how we speed up that replacement of the most at-risk pipes, not necessarily the oldest ones, but the most at risk, right? And I know you guys have started thinking about that, but that's hopefully is a task that we're gonna deal with later this year.
Yeah, we'll start planning how we're gonna spend that money, and one of the primary objectives is to replace infrastructure water in Des Moines.
So we have the motion to authorize staff to reimburse the city of Des Moines for water main relocations included in the East Court Avenue reconstruction from Des Moines River to East 7th Street. Go ahead and take a vote on that. All in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item E, it's request authorization to solicit bids for the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1 and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the March 2023 board meeting.
Andrea, this is our first pure water main replacement project that's not associated with anybody else's work for 2023. We've got 3 streets here. Southwest 9th from Luster to Burnham is basically in front of the entire frontage of the zoo on Southwest 9th. And then we have a section of Southwest 12th from Edgemont to Bell and 43rd Street from Greenwood to somewhere along 43rd Street there. These are all areas where the water main has experienced a significant break history. And we would like authorization from the board to solicit bids for replacing those 3 water mains.
So I'm looking for a motion to authorize staff to solicit bids for the 2023 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract 1 and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the March 2023 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law.
so
Second.
Any discussion?
Just more curiosity, but. Start to whatever we were just talking about the deed sections. Do we have any sense of what potentially are causing these to be problematic with drivers?
Yeah, we do. My guess is that this pipe is of a vintage that was thinner wall pipe. I do know that there's some corrosive soil in that low area down in front of the zoo. We have a lot of main breaks there, have had a lot of main breaks there. I don't know if John's not here, but I don't know if Kyle, Lindsay, Mike, anybody else has specifics on the installation date or the specifics behind the break history on these pipes.
I do not, I know one of our most recent contracts is also down in the secondary. Again, targeting. Pipes, we think are the most unreliable. Then I will share that let's work on Southwest 12, that's replacement of private main.
Okay.
So residents approach us and the board probably. It's a very small part of the project, but it's,
It's the one by Lincoln High School.
yeah. So we're gonna
Thank you.
knock that out as part of this contract.
Good.
Thanks for
Hey,
pointing
Ted.
out. Did we, are the neighbors satisfied with? how
Yeah,
we're
they all
handling this?
signed agreements in regards to their level of financial. So we just have some follow up and do a better execution structure.
We create like a payment plan for them or something to
Yeah, they
ease the
have
burden.
different payment options. And, major elections. None of that really happens.
Right.
until, the transfer of service. You know, the tables been settled, or I think settled to.
I know, I mean, they were concerned about that. So I hear that.
And help me remember on this one, they did, some of them didn't know when they bought the property,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so is there a way to record that on the property with Polk County? So at least someone in the future knows that this is a private line. I mean, just like you would record anything else on a piece of property.
I think it's a disclosure issue for the seller of the house. I think that first and foremost, it should be an issue that's disclosed by the seller of the property to the buyer, and it may be an issue that could be privately addressed between the buyer and the seller.
You disclose just like if you have a legal based.
Right.
Something.
Right.
So let me ask you this, John, if they call Moines Waterworks and they say, hey, I want to know what the average water cost is on this particular property. Do we notify them? Do we tell them? Do we have it marked in our record that we say, by the way, that is a private line?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know what it's.
So, no, well, so if somebody called and said, do I have, I don't know why they would call and say, do I have? But necessarily no, right?
We can certainly access the records, not in the customer database that the customer service reps are using every day on the phone. Customers, inquire with our engineering friends to.
If they ask us.
Yeah. And it's kind of like if they call and asked if they had a lead service line. We could do some research and analysis and let them know, but there's careful consideration that has to be given to recording on someone's property that they have a lead service line or that they are on a private line. And the reason is that the people who live there now and have that investment, nobody told them. And now if we go out and tell everyone that they have a black mark on their property, if we affect their property value. I'm not sure, John, whether that would be advisable.
No, I don't think that the waterworks should engage in trying to record. I'm not sure exactly what we'd be recording on the property. Because we, as a private main, by definition, we wouldn't have any right to it. So I think it's something sort of from a legal standpoint is probably best addressed by buyer and seller, as far as the seller notifying the buyer that this is part of what you're getting when you get the property. But I understand that those remedies may be unsatisfactory to.
People don't know to ask that question.
Well, right.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
common is this in Metro?
Well, it's uncommon unless it's your house and then.
Right. I know. They can tell that, so.
Right. Like the lead service line question, we have 20,000 of those we estimate. Private lines, private customers who are served by private lines. I would guess it would be hundreds rather than thousands, but I don't have a way to.
You might have that data, so I can take it, this research.
Oh, that's right.
Doing this, and they were- they're trying to get a sense of. It's a fraction of a percent versus like 15%. It's gonna be a low number, but I think. Probably.
And the path that we took, Alec, most recently was to create a process whereby homeowners could petition the board to replace their to install a water main for them as a way for us to help out of some of these situations. And so that's what you're seeing here. Mike, thanks for bringing that up because I had forgotten that that's what we're here. But we're trying to give them a path if because what happens is they leak. And they come and say, hey, I have a leak. Tell me there's no water main.
Well, I'm sure for the current, for any of the existing homeowners that they're looking to sell. That be altruistic about disclosing stuff like this, we're legally conscious because it's not your benefit to disclose risks when you're trying to sell your homes, unfortunately.
Yeah, some of them may not know.
And
If it never leaked while they lived there, they may have no idea.
Just one last note on this, the property disclosure form for selling residential property requires disclosure of plumbing issues, and I understand one of the issues this group had was water pressure, which I think there might be a dispute between the parties as to whether or not that was a sufficiently significant issue to rise to disclosure, but I do think if you had a noticeable issue like that, it's something that should have been disclosed. And if it wasn't, there are some remedies available for sellers that fail to disclose issues.
I'll jump in with one other answer. There'd been a question about the age of the water main on Southwest 9th, and it was installed in 1957. So not that old a pipe, but it is that thin walled junkier pipe that's had a lot of breaks.
It's that post-war vintage that we have trouble with. Thank you, Jen.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. Would you like me to reread that motion? The motion is to authorize staff to solicit bids for 2023 Des Moines Waterworks main replacement contract 1 and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of March 2023 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So moving on to item F. Item F is request authorization to solicit bids for the Moffett East feeder main valve vault and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the March 2023 board meeting.
This is a project that we undertook in cooperation with West Des Moines Waterworks to ensure that they had adequate water supply to serve some large users that they were anticipating would construct facilities in the area to the south. South of the Raccoon River, south of Army Post Road, what they call their south system. We actually entered an MOU with West Des Moines and West Des Moines Waterworks a couple of years ago. It's taken some time to get the project ready, but it is now ready for bid. I will note that the engineer's estimate for this project is $850,000, which is more than the estimate that was in the MOU a couple of years ago. Our perspective on this right now today is that we need to get bids and get real numbers for this. Then we need to have a conversation with West Des Moines Waterworks about how to proceed. I believe they still need the infrastructure and they are interested in ensuring they have the appropriate capacity for those facilities once they're constructed, but there's that question. We'll be working with them when we have actual numbers that we can talk about. So at this point, we're looking for authorization to solicit bids for the project.
So the motion is to authorize staff to solicit bids for the Moffett East feeder main valve vault project and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the March 2023 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law.
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Not hearing any, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to item F, request authorization to solicit bids for. Sorry, moving on to item G, request authorization to solicit bids for the McMullen High Service Pump Building HVAC and roofing upgrades and establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the February 2023 board meeting.
Andrea, we have an electrical room at the McMullen Water Treatment Plant that has inadequate cooling. And the reason that it has inadequate cooling is that we've installed a number of VFDs in that room over the years to allow us to control the speed of the pumps that pump the water out into the distribution system. Those VFDs generate heat, and so the existing air conditioning unit just simply is no longer large enough. We want to install a larger unit. And at the same time, because that project is going to require us to cut some holes in the roof and do some roofing work, we want to replace that roof. That roof is actually has had some leaks that have been fixed, but it's aging and it's time to replace it. So while we're there, we want to do both of those things. So we're requesting authorization to install the new HVAC and replace the roof on that building.
So the motion is to authorize staff to solicit bids for the McMullen High Service Pump Building HVAC and roofing upgrades project and to establish the date of the public hearing as the date of the February 2023 board meeting and direct staff to publish notice as provided by law.
So
Second. Any discussion? Not hearing any, we'll take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item H is request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for professional services for the McMullen Water Treatment Plant Chemical Feed Improvements Engineering Services.
Andrea, we have a number of things that we want to do with the chemical feed systems out at the McMullen plant. One of those things is we want to take an unused soda ash silo and retrofit that to store powdered activated carbon and also install powdered activated carbon feed equipment there. We do have carbon there, but we want to have a redundant system and more storage capacity so that we can receive full truckloads of product, which would be cheaper from a delivery perspective. We also want to replace the ferric chloride storage tanks. That's one of the chemicals we use in the treatment process. The tanks are aging. We also could use some additional storage. We want to replace those with new larger tanks. And then finally, we want to replace some of the chemical feed lines out there that are also aging and have experienced some leaks. So we're bundling all of those projects together. We actually did a request for proposals and we got two proposals, one from McClure, one from AECom. And staff reviewed the proposals based on the qualifications you can see there from experience, project approach, schedule, and fees. And is recommending that we execute a professional services agreement with McClure for the McMullen Water Treatment Plant chemical improvements in the amount of $106,670.
So motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional service agreement with McClure in the amount of $106,670 for design and construction services for the McMullen Water Treatment Plant Chemical Feed Improvements Project contingent upon negotiation of terms and conditions that are acceptable to staff and subsequent review by legal counsel.
So moved.
Second. Question. In this scenario with our new policies and procedures of consultant selection, what does this look like?
That's a great question. I think that this would still be a public improvement because we are putting in powdered activated carbon where there is none. We're putting in larger tanks for ferric chloride. We may have been able to say that the chemical feed lines that we're simply replacing was, repair, replace, maintain. Michael, Lindsay, do you have a perspective on that?
Just practically scoped out the design, vision and construction. So it probably won't change for this project. But if we were to do it like going forward, we might have done a study for design first and then amended it for construction. And we did scope it out. So we did an action work. And yes, I would agree. So public improvement, so.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute a professional service agreement with McClure in the amount of $106,670 for design and construction services for the McMullen Water Treatment Plant Chemical Feed Improvements Project contingent upon negotiation of terms and conditions that are acceptable to staff and subsequent review by legal counsel. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item I is the appointment of board members to external boards and committees of the Board of Trustees. So you'll see there in the summary that our Des Moines, I guess some items to note, the Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation. I'm staying as a representative there, as well as this time where we have tapped Pat Bruner to also represent Des Moines Waterworks on the foundation board. He is a staff member here, but we'll also have Mike McCurran to serve as the ex officio member and kind of really be that technical liaison between the two. Graham will continue serving with the Des Moines Botanical Gardens, and then with the committee assignments. Alec and Diane in the finance, and Sue and Graham in the planning committee. So no action, but does anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments?
I have never been on the planning committee.
Well,
I'm so excited.
Right.
It's 2004. Is that odd?
Wow.
I was kind of.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
You're welcome.
that's not have guessed that. I'd have lost that bet.
It's a great committee. I've served on it since I started. So moving into information items, board committee reports, planning committee. So I guess I will continue to report on that we had our legislative updates, both at the state level and the federal level. I'll really appreciate our path forward with working with both advocacy strategies and Woodbury Associates. It's been a great start to the legislative session with the legislative breakfast. I don't know if Ted, you want to talk more and highlight about that day, but I appreciate staff stepping up to represent us up at the Capitol and to share our priorities and be a face to the legislators as we can move into this legislative session.
Yeah, I think Jen is going to share some details about the legislative breakfast, but I will just say that it was an excellent event. Staff did a great job of preparing it. We had great attendance, but I won't steal any more of Jen's thunder than that.
Well, then I will pass it on to the Finance and Audit Committee.
Yeah, I get, this is, oops, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Diane, and I guess I'll report from that. One is, we had two items at our meeting. One was to review the changes to the policy manual that had gone through planning, also went through finance and audit, and culminated today in the approval of those changes to streamline purchasing practices. So appreciate the time that was spent with us to go through those changes in depth. The other was a review of our experience in the new insurance pool that we're in for health insurance. As you recall, we changed in our insurance pool a couple of years ago. We had a pretty large increase, which really culminated in us taking a look at what our options were, and we ended up moving from the city of Des Moines to another pool that includes municipalities and then some other members. So we reviewed our history to date in that group, and I think it's been good. And I can't recall, Ted, was it that we would have a 3% increase next year?
The increase that the trust is passing along to members is 3% or 3.5%, but then that does not include, Diane, our reserve fund and what we need to do with that.
Right.
So our increase to employees will be a little more than that. I don't know that we know that yet, Doug, exactly.
But I think the experience overall has been positive, and I think we're pretty happy with the change that was made. Our claims are considered part of the entire pool. Whereas with the city of Des Moines, I think we were looked at separately.
That's right.
So I think this is a way to manage those increases across the board, and I believe it's been positive.
Yeah, financially, it's been very positive and very stable, and we're pleased from that perspective.
Graham, Stowe Foundation and Botanical Garden.
So the Stowe Foundation, if we have time on our agenda in February, I think it would be appropriate for the Stowe Foundation to come and give an update of where we are. It's one of these things where I feel in a way it's still a little early to come, but also I don't want to get too far down the road with Stowe Foundation before talking to this board. So, if we could have some time on the agenda in February, and if it didn't happen in March, it's fine, but if February works out, I think it would be appropriate.
Yeah, we can add that as, we'll just put it right here, Graham, in the informational items. There won't be any action necessary.
There's no action. We'll give an update on what we're doing. I mean, there's a lot of excitement about this, and I think we're getting to the point where it might actually happen. These things might actually happen, and so I think it would be appropriate for us to.
If you're gonna have a group or a team, we could put it early, like more towards.
That would be
Why don't
great.
we do that, Michelle? We'll put it kind of up in the public comment, actually up in that area, or that they can present early.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't have anything to really report on that. Botanical Garden, we continue to, things continue to go well over there. I know, and I think I mentioned it last month, they're working on a slight amendment to our agreement about how we appoint our member and that sort of thing, but that will come to us at some point. And I think, Ted, I had a report that you met with Kim Perez over at the garden to talk about their expansion, and we're gonna help them kind of think about their planning for what their water usage is gonna be.
That's exactly right. We did meet, and we're looking at meeting sometime in the spring with technical staff to talk about how much water they need and possibly a second connection, where that would be. We're planning for that.
So if you think about the garden, so where that outdoor garden is and that beautiful sculpture they put in honoring Tom Urban that they put in before winter, that the plan is to expand that garden back almost to University as it goes up the hill. And so I don't remember the number of acres there, but it's a sizable increase in outdoor gardens, which will mean an increase in water. And so I am pleased that they came to us early to start thinking about this, because it won't be an insignificant cost for the garden. That's all I got.
Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation Board, we've talked in the past about a repayment contract between the Park Foundation and the city. Also our role, looks like that contract is kind of coming to a conclusion within the negotiation and will likely appear on our at our board next month.
Correct. As an amendment to the original 2080.
Other than that, they've built out 3 additional board members. I think there's a lot of excitement going into this 2023 season. And looking at next month, they're going to be doing a strategic planning session. And so probably more to report on the Park Foundation after that. Okay, Pat, I don't know, Pat, if there's anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm really excited and honored to be on the Park Foundation board, and it does sound like it's gonna be an exciting year. So I'm really looking forward to getting in and finding out what it's all about.
We're happy that you were willing to serve in that role, so thank you.
Thank you.
And then item B, staff updates.
Jen?
Was it more like my report to the gallery or?
We like to make you feel uncomfortable.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So it's good to be back. Just really quickly, I was gonna do an update for the state and federal updates on legislation. So lobby day, as you mentioned earlier, we had about 45 legislators stop by our breakfast. Which we were really excited about. There are, I believe, 50 new state legislators. And so some of them are meeting us for the first time. So they get to hear our story for the first time. So Ted and the rest were very charming, at least out of the chute, when everybody's optimistic and excited. So I think all of the senior management team was there, which is great. So, and, you know, advocacy strategies help prep all of us with our talking points and things. So it was a great opportunity. Representative Jennery from Plymouth County, which is up in Northwest Iowa, is the chair of the Natural Resources Committee, and he's already met with me today. He'd like us to do a presentation next Tuesday, primarily about our source water protection projects. So he's pretty excited about that. I know Senator Rosenboom on the Senate side also wants us to do a presentation in the next few weeks. So excited about that. We've already had some bills cross our desk this year, including Iowa's one call system and cybersecurity, which I have passed along. I get input from staff experts whenever I have complex legislation come across my desk. And so Pat Bruner and Jenny Puffer have been helping me with those so far. At the federal level, we've been working closely with our lobby team to keep on the radars of our delegation and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. You know, now that we got prioritized in the Water Resources Development Act, we want to be sure that that doesn't get lost in the shuffle. We want to be sure that we stay at the forefront of getting our funding and then getting the work, research work started on Saylorville, harmful algal blooms. We're also continuing to work with the EPA and our delegation about ensuring that lead service line funding is flexible and that it comes out in the form of grants if possible to the utility so that we can pass that on to our disadvantaged customers. How many of you saw that Ted presented at the work session for the city council yesterday morning? That was a wonderful opportunity for us to tell our story. And I suspect you'll say more about that maybe, Ted, but we held individual meetings with each of the council, all but one councilors, and Ted spoke with the mayor. So I think it went really well, and we're looking forward to working with them on a communications and outreach plan. And so Melissa Walker will be working with me on getting together with their staff in the next coming weeks and months on that. Then really quickly, the time has come again to open the application period for the Citizen Water Academy, which will take place in October. We have opened up, well, we're in the planning stages. We're going to be changing a little bit of the delivery methodology around the Citizen Academy based upon some feedback, as well as perhaps a little bit of somewhat of a tweak on some of our topics to better align ourselves with the mission. It's been, I think, 6 years since we launched the first one. So a lot has happened in those last 6 years. Also, our Clean Water Support Program has opened up for applications. That was where people can go to our website and apply to have their projects funded by us. We have a $20,000 annual budget for that, and we have a cross-departmental team that helps select those projects. And they put us in touch with people around the community that we don't normally work with, but we want to elevate their voices around clean water. For example, we worked with Gateway Dance Theater last summer, and they were able to do a whole water week because of our funding, and then it ended with a STEM program and an interpretive dance, which one might not automatically think of when you think of waterworks. So that's pretty cool. Our urban ag seeder is still roaming about our watershed, hoping to kick off another successful year of getting more cover crops planted. We also are in the midst of our University of Iowa National Science Foundation Confidence in Tap Water study, which you've been hearing about. They are deploying their researchers right now in our community doing research here. They're holding focus groups with some minority populations, some disadvantaged communities around the metro, understanding their attitudes and behaviors around confidence in tap water. So I'm very anxious to see that research and to see if we get approved for phase 2 of that grant, which we'll find out later this spring. I think those are the highlights. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
Ted, you're up with the CEO and general manager's comments.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. One thing I wanted to do today was give the board a quick overview of the strategic initiatives from 2022 and the progress that we made. The graphic that Michelle has up there right now kind of gives you our report out just at a glance. Each of the blue bars that goes from the bottom to the top is an initiative that was completed. Some were 80 or 90% completed, and some not so much. But I want to highlight a couple of things that I think were great initiatives as we are trying to recognize opportunities in the area of our 4 values, our employee experience, our customer experience, leadership in the industry, stewardship in the environment, and diversity. We're trying to advance in all 5 of those areas. And one of the things I'll share is a new onboarding program that was launched this year with a team from across the utility came together. It was headed by Rochelle Bestow in the HR department, but they came together with an understanding that when new people come and they go to work, the first day, and they don't know what everybody else does, and they end up in kind of a silo. And there's real interest in what goes on around the utility. And so they did a great job of putting together an onboarding process where a group of employees who had started all in 1 year, and I think it might have been 2021, it was the year that they started because pandemic and whatnot. And they took them through a process, some tours, some meet and greets. They got to see stores, they got to see water production. Nathan got all the accolades of his presentation being the coolest. But they went to distribution, they saw what they do there, they came down here. And there's been really positive feedback that people really appreciated seeing that and feeling a part of the utility after they'd been through that process. It's not unlike the new board member orientation process, except not quite as in depth and a bigger group. So that was a neat initiative that came out of some of the employee experience feedback. Our diversity and inclusion assessment. Again, a team from across the utility participated in the selection process to identify the consultant who would be used to do our assessment. The process included a comprehensive review of Waterworks policies, procedures, and programs, as well as employee surveys and interviews, and even some focus groups. The report is being finalized right now with recommendations, and we hope to have that in final form here in the coming weeks. But we already have a process in place and a consultant on board to help us implement some of those recommendations. So we're excited about the progress that we made on that initiative. Employment and being an employer of choice was another initiative area there. And one of the things that we did was kind of revitalize, I'm going to call it, the employee recognition team. We have 16 employees from across the utility again, and you'll see a theme of trying to do things with teams from across the utility, and they got together to plan a number of events that hopefully will be more engaging and more interactive. One was the pancake breakfast, which I know Graham attended, and it was kind of a fun event with the pancake man throwing pancakes all over the atrium out here. We had good attendance of that, and then also the awards banquet that we were able to attend. Was a great event, and they have a lot of things on the horizon there to try to give employees the opportunity to interact with each other across departments and learn more about the people here that they work with. Also in that same area of focus, we had our engineering department organizational assessment, where we had a consultant help us with some review and analysis of the processes and procedures in our engineering department. I think that was a very informational process. It came out that members of the team in engineering are interested in having clearly defined roles and responsibilities, well-documented procedures, training, and accountability. It was a great message. I think it was a great learning experience for the team, and they're working on those things and building on what they learned there. The voice of the customer survey. The board is aware. I know that we did a voice of the customer survey again with Espen Research. The results were presented at this September planning committee meeting. The customer service team and the PR team have reviewed those recommendations and they're using that feedback to refine some of our processes and to develop some new initiatives which we'll be hearing about in the coming months. Regional governance, I won't spend a lot of time on that. I think we've spent so much time on that, but we're making progress there, as you know. We had an initiative related to capacity of our system and expansion of capacity. One of the initiatives within that area of focus was CIP investment, and we were hoping to see 90%. Mike, what was the word we used? A blanket obligation. We were looking to obligate 90% of the budget, both from a total CIP perspective and then also more specifically on our water main replacement. Fell a little short this year, but it's a great place to start and build from. They obligated 58% of the overall CIP, 75% of the water main replacement budget. So we'll be working on that in the coming year. And then we also had a goal to issue RFPs for 5 expansion projects. We issued 4 of those this year. One of them we purposely held off on because we may attach it to the work that's being done for the Saylorville expansion, but Saylorville raw water, Saylorville treatment, Saylorville transmission, and the new ASR well, those 4 RFPs were issued, and we have consultants, in fact, on board working. And the last one was the well field with bringing water potentially back to Blue Drive, and that's one that we intentionally held off on. And then the final area that I'll comment on here is facility operation maintenance and reinvestment. That's an area where we've gotten a lot of feedback from our employees. It needs to be an area of focus, and so we tried to identify some steps we could take. In water production, they've established a critical equipment task force to help them identify critical equipment and maintenance that needs to be done there. Distribution has started an initiative to replace all of our sentinel hydrants, which are a style of hydrant that we have a lot of problems with. They met their goal of replacing the first 10 of those last year, and they're going to replace 15 more this year. And then water production also developed a predictive and preventive maintenance plan. And so those are some of the things that are represented by the blue bars there. There's a lot more information in the packet. I'm happy to talk in more detail about any of those. But there's a lot going on, and a lot of good things are happening. None of which on their own make giant change, but they're all small steps towards the right direction. The last thing that I would share, if there aren't any questions about that, is
I have a question.
okay,
What
Diane.
about the KPIs for 2023?
Yeah, the plan is to present those next month, Diane. I want to
Okay,
do this month.
okay,
And present 2023's next month. So there are 30 of them, which is, but we're going to group them. And
okay,
try to present them in a logical, understandable way. And we're going to group them based on our 5 values, but you can look forward to that in February.
yeah, well, I think in light of the concerns from the union earlier, I hope that will show up in one of our KPIs.
Yeah, safety and training are certainly going to be focuses, and I think there are things that will touch on those. KPIs were developed, frankly, before the incident, but we can certainly adjust, and there will be a focus there without any question.
Okay, thank you.
The last thing I will share is, as Jen alluded to, we've been working pretty hard on lead service lines, and we did have the opportunity to visit with the city council about lead service lines. It had come up in a city council meeting about possibly requiring testing before rental certificates were issued for rental properties. And there was some discussion about that. And part of the discussion was that they should interact with the waterworks before they make that decision. So We actually reached out to each of the city councilors and offered them the opportunity to come in and meet the staff. Four of them and the mayor agreed to come in and meet, and they were great meetings and great opportunity to educate the council on what's going on in their city in terms of lead service lines and the need to replace those, to make it clear that we don't have a lead and drinking water problem. We have a lead service line replacement problem. But those were great discussions. Jenny was there, Laura was there, Jen, Amy and I think that was the group we met with. The mayor wasn't able to come in, but I had a nice conversation with him on the phone. And then Monday, we were invited to go to a city council work session, and we had an hour. Thankfully, we kind of gotten all the basics out of the way. And so we could focus on the fact that we really want to attack this thing more globally. Our goal is to have all of the lead service lines in the city of Des Moines replaced in the next 15 years. That's a huge initiative, given that there are 20,000 of them. But we shared some information with the council on who owns the service lines, where they tend to be, which homes, all of that kind of detail. And then we shared 3 asks with them. First of all, we asked them to help us identify sources of funding to deal with this $200 million problem. There's federal funding available, but it isn't nearly enough. And we're going to have to work together, because this is a community issue. It's not a Des Moines Waterworks issue. These are privately owned facilities that need to be replaced. It's not unlike a roof. You know, it's part of the house. It's the customer's responsibility, but we want to help. So helping us identify the funding sources, helping us identify anything that could potentially be done from a policy perspective. Things like time of transfer requirements, or date certain requirements, or even just requirements that people have to let us into their home for, as part of the replacement process. I mean, there's a huge spectrum of things that they could do, all the way from the most basic to the most dramatic. We want to work with them on that. And then also we want to work with them on a public education program. There are people out in this community who have no idea that they have a lead service line. And if they knew it, they might replace it. And so we want to make sure that everyone who has a lead service knows that, and that they know what resources are available, and they know how to move forward with replacing it. So it was well received. I thought the council actually had a spirited discussion about requiring some sort of date certain replacement for rental properties, like giving them 5 years. And if you don't have it replaced within 5 years, you won't get your next rental certificate. That hasn't been decided, but good discussion, and I think it positions us well to move forward with that initiative. So,
Ted, how would someone know if they have a lead service?
In Des Moines, it's mostly a date of construction. So if your house was built before 1940, and you have an original service line, which we can tell you based on the tap date, the customer could call and ask us what their tap date was. And if their tap date was before 1940, there's a very high likelihood that they have a lead service line. If their tap was made, or their connection to the water system was made after 1950, it's a very small likelihood that they have a lead service line.
If it's been replaced too, right?
We can tell. I don't know, Amy, if we know necessarily that it's been replaced, but we know what the tap date was.
Right.
So, Graham, if somebody's house was built, in the 1920s, and their tap date was in the 50s or 60s, then we assume it was replaced.
Right.
Surely they had water originally.
Well, my house would have been in that category, but we replaced the line.
Yep.
But I don't know if Waterworks knows we replaced the line.
If you replaced it all the way to the street,
We did.
then we would. Yeah, we'll do a little test to make sure that that's the case. I was interesting. I had one city councilor ask me to look up their tap date after the meeting, and I had someone who was online watching text me and say, "Hey, can you look it up for me?" But that's how they could know, is check with us, and we can give them, if their tap was made in the 1940s, then we have to do some more analysis. What size was it? Can we get in the basement and look at the pipe that's coming through the wall or the floor? but we're here to help with that.
So I would also add, on that we have a database on our website that customers can go out to dmw.com, enter their address, and they could find out that way.
Have we done any analysis on, since we're looking for funds to help with the financial burden of this replacement, do we know how many homes might fall into that need category?
Disadvantage status.
Yeah,
We are waiting for information from the DNR. They will distribute those funds based on census tract.
okay,
And so they are still developing their formula for disadvantaged customers and expect to have that available soon. Because we intend to make an application for that funding by March 1st.
okay, thank you.
So, Ted, do you have a presentation that you gave the council?
I do, Diane, yes,
Can we see that?
absolutely. You want me to just share the slides or do you want me to bring it to planning or? Probably.
I don't know. What's everybody think? I think it might be good for us to hear what you went through with them at planning.
Yeah, happy to do that. It'll be pretty quick. Easy.
Okay.
Much of it, members of the board have already heard, but I think it would be
Yeah.
for you to know just what has been shared with the council.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is, you said you set a goal of 15 years to replace these. What was that based on?
It was based on how long we thought it would take for us to do it, what was a reasonable, and I'm gonna say 15 to 20. There are 20,000 of them, replacing 1,000 a year will be a significant initiative. We want to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. And that was our best guess of what was a reasonable amount of time for us to do the work. It was no more sophisticated than that.
Okay, thanks.
One, just last question. When we're talking placements, are there economies of scale to be had by going in and doing a whole block, or if it's this person's eligible, but is the price change, or is it kind of?
I would say there are definite economies of scale. If we can identify, 10 in a row on one block, and a contractor can just move in, because they'll have crews that dig the hole and crews that, pull the pipe in and crews that do the work inside, and they can just have them working all right there in the same block, one after the other. So definitely, and that would be our plan of attack, is to try to do them all in a row. But we're a ways away from that yet, but definitely economies of scale.
If there are no other questions, item D is the contract status and professional service agreements. And if nobody has any questions on those, I'll take a motion for adjournment. Second. Oh, it says, yeah, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Good job.
Yeah,